Ladies and gentlemen, first time on Caravan to Midnight, it's my pleasure to welcome Brendi Sheets. Let me tell you a little bit about her, which is in fact quite a lot about her. She began this journey 13 years ago when she came across the most horrifying murder of an entire family by accident. She became obsessed with finding the truth, collected data and evidence, not realizing how important this would be so many years later. It took 13 years for me to realize God was preparing me for a battle and something much greater than myself, she writes. I had no social media until I saw Trump's tweet. I hit my knees, and that was my light bulb moment. I had to use social media for this issue, just like he did, to bypass the media, speak directly to the people, and win. I could never have known what was to come. I never knew every South African suffering, all of this, would find me, or that I was capable of accomplishing things that changed lives on a local level. I knew the murders would never be enough. Not even if every last white person were gone from Earth. I knew in order to help the Boer, English, Afrikaner, 1, I had to know them. 2, I had to understand the history. 3, I had to understand the greater dynamic of everything happening. I knew that the way forward was to take down the ANC. The African National Congress, or African Nationalist Communist would be closer to it. That is and has always been my goal, she writes. It may seem an impossible feat, but we have accomplished many things, and I've seen a miracle take place before my eyes. How do you eat an elephant? I will see them fall. I will see justice, justice for every slaughtered family, tortured child, dehumanized woman, and murdered elder. Some crimes are crimes against God himself. That's why I fight this every day. Who am I to turn away when God leads the way? Why is my life more important than theirs? Why are my children's lives more important? They're not. I pray that if I were in the same situation, someone, somewhere would care enough to fight for me and my children. I cannot look away. I cannot give up on them or let them down. I made a promise that I would fight until the very end, and I never break my word. Oh, I like her a lot already. Welcome, Brendi Sheets. It's good to have you with us. Wow, what a fierce little warrior priestess you are. Amazing.
Thank you very much. I get emotional just hearing that because it's really is me pouring my heart out, on the issue. And sometimes I felt hopeless, on this crazy journey that I've been on. But every time I feel hopeless and like I don't know the way forward, something amazing happens and another door opens for me, and it's like God shoves me through it and says, here, see the way.
How'd you discover this murder? How'd you come across it? What was the accident?
Well, this is actually really interesting because it was in the years after 9/11, when the people started to become very distrustful of the media. I don't even remember what I was looking for, but this story popped up and I clicked on it because it had a picture of, a crime scene photo. It took me to a white supremacist website. I don't even remember exactly what the name was. And I thought, but I read the story anyway. And, it's interesting because I think that fact that these were the only places that were putting out that kind of information did a lot of damage to this cause from the beginning, because people looked at it and they discredited it because of where the information was coming from. Well, all these years later, it turns out it was all true. It was all absolutely true. But
Yes.
and now you can find the information, a lot of different places. But at the time, it seems that the information coming out of South Africa was mostly put up on these types of sites.
Wondering, well, I heard just recently that there was going to be an emergency measure put into place by the president to bring South African, white South Africans we have plenty of sub-Saharan black Africans over here for sure. They just waltz in through Mexico or however they get in. But getting a white South African individually or a family in here is quite a daunting task. And so President Trump, I haven't spoken to him on the phone to confirm this, but I have it on very good authority that he was putting into place an executive order that would lift the restrictions on their entry into this country. And John Bolton stopped it. And so there we are. I don't like Bolton. I only liked one thing that he
That
did.
is
He
very
reared up
heartbreaking.
on the UN one time, and I thought, okay, that's good. And I kind of liked him because he was kind of hawkish. But as time went by, there's a big difference between being hawkish and being trigger happy. And I think John Bolton is a trigger happy little psycho, and I'm saying it. That's my opinion. And if he sues me for saying it, good, because then I think I can prove it. You know, the discovery follows if they sue me. So. But Bolton's out.
I
Now he's
agree.
enmeshed in his book controversy and so forth. But the question is what to do about it. So just take it away. And I just want to know I know what we're doing. Of course, we had some blowback
So,
from this character that just seems to want to involve himself in everything. He's done nothing for the South African people except vilify everybody and anybody who's ever tried to do anything for the South African Boers and the South African white population in general, so that he can take the credit. I suppose he's just an idiot, as I stated
right.
on his own program just the other day. So anyway,
Yeah, that was a great interview, the greatest interview. Um, but you're absolutely right. And I'm a person that I do not believe in sitting around complaining or just talking about who's to blame or, just complaining about the issue at hand. I seek solutions, you know, and I don't seek them from, as Mark Collette put it when I went on his show, I don't seek solutions from the top of the mountain. I seek them from the bottom because you can't get anywhere if you don't start at the bottom. So some of the things that myself working with others have accomplished may seem small, but they change lives, even the small things. And small things add up to great things, so it's like a chipping away a little at a time. And I see with my own eyes the effects of everything that you, me, your wife, every person speaking out, giving their voice, their money, their time, writing letters to the government. We have done something amazing that I thought I would never, ever, ever see in my life. And that is make this issue one of the top five hot button issues in the world. I never thought that would happen. And, you know, you guys are doing great things. And I made a video last night about this person you're speaking about. And I said, why would you attack a good initiative to help people because you're angry about it, that you are behaving in a way that you shouldn't be behaving. So you take away from the people something, you want to take away something good. And, I made it clear I'm not involved with the Ark Project at all, but I support what is good for the people in whatever role I can play. I don't care where that role is. It's at the bottom, the middle, the top, wherever I can help is where I'll be. But I had an idea. There's something that I wanted to do because I've thought on this issue of bringing people over. And as you said, it's so hard for a white South African to come in, to even get into America, to stay here. It's nearly impossible. People are being denied asylum because it's so hard to get asylum. And you have to prove on a case by case individual basis that you are in direct threat of death or physical harm if you are made to return. And you have a hearing, so you have to provide evidence. So my idea was to lobby the government to add in a clause, some change to the asylum laws or the process where under extenuating circumstances only people can apply as a group. So not as common occurrence, as rare, but for situations like this. Because if you think about it, John, the president can't give asylum or refugee status to white South Africans, right? That doesn't work. He would have to give refugee status to all South Africans. So then what would happen to America? We would turn into South Africa. So there has to be some other solution. And this was just an idea that I had um, to try, because I've spoken to so many attorneys on this and law firms on immigration, human rights, and even Dr. Stanton of Genocide Watch. And there's no loophole because I've been looking for it. I've been searching pretty hard. And so this would be sort of that loophole if it could be accomplished. And I believe anything could be accomplished. It just depends on how hard you're willing to work for it.
You know what's funny? I just saw an article today on what has become pretty much a horrible uh, slag sheet. That's the old Drudge Report. But the Africans are leaving here and going back to Africa. Now that's just a report, but it did pop up on the scope, so now it's in the consciousness of those who indulge in media. So, so the problem that we have is that the ones who could afford to get out have gotten out. The problem is with the people who have been pushed into these squatter camps, have had their jobs just yanked out from under them. Folks, you don't understand. This is really happening. This isn't some made up nonsense. This is really happening. You're sitting in your office. Maybe you're a human resources director or a assistant human resources director, but you're the wrong color. And your black boss comes in and tells you, get your stuff and get out. You don't have a job anymore. And in comes a black person to take your place who has no idea what to do in that position, but it doesn't matter because this is all a part of economic freedom. These are the same people who could not come up with a wheel by 1652. They're running what was a top tier government. Or are they really running it? Who's really running it? Well, the government that's in place now, the ANC, that's just the muscle arm of the Chinese Communist Party. And while we did have a guest on recently who said, no, I don't think the British have much of an influence there. They do. The British government has influence all over the world in ways we could not possibly imagine when you look at the size of that country and the amount of power that it still wields around the world. Remember, Great Britain ruled the world for a long time, long time. And they still hold sway
Right.
over many, many nations. And so the big question is, why? We can have a concert for Bangladesh. We can do all of these things to help the people, provided they're the right color. Is there just a presumption out there that, oh well, you're white, since you were born you just had it way too good for way too long, so it's only right you should suffer and perish because we who, did I mention, couldn't come up with a wheel by 1652, you have oppressed us. They weren't oppressed. They were kept away from each other so the tribes wouldn't continue murdering each other. There were no white people involved in the unbelievable conflicts between the Tutsis and the Hutus. No white people involved there at
Right.
all. There was no white people involved in Rwanda or any of that. So it's all a big smear campaign. What are these people even talking about, Brandy? I didn't mean to just go on and on like that, but you reach a
Well,
point, you just hit a wall trying to understand the mentality here, and it's nothing other than eliminating anybody who could fight back, move the Chinese in, take over the country, done deal.
right. So what people don't understand, John, is that, in America, we are conditioned only to safety and freedom. And only in South Africa would this be allowed to go on. A white engineer cannot get a job as a street sweeper. Um, everything is based on race. If you are white and you own a company, you have to give, not sell, not have them invest, give 51% of your company that you worked your
That's
life
right.
for to a black person in order to meet the BBBEE requirements put into place by the government. They're only allowed to have a 7% white workforce, no matter of qualifications. And we see the results of that because South Africa has been downgraded to junk status. We're talking about a country where the rand was once almost double the American dollar. A first world country with a first class military is being leveled.
Yep.
It is
Right.
heartbreaking to see. And it is because of this perpetual victim status that government officials and they lie to keep these people dependent on them, and they make them the victim. The craziest thing I can ever imagine happening in my life is to see a meeting in Congress, to see any people of any color doing this to people of other races, singing "Kill the Boer," which
Yeah.
means kill all the white people.
Yep.
Or, I mean, just, it's insane. It's like everything's backwards and upside down. And, John, Dr. Stanton told us something 10 years ago, and it didn't really hit me, the magnitude of what he said, until I picked his video apart to make a compilation video. And I had to listen to every word again. This man is a retired constitutional attorney. He lives in Washington, D.C. He's the founder of Genocide Watch. He, goes all over the world. He's the only man who's ever had the guts to report honestly on the situation in South Africa. And what he said, what he warned and told the world 10 years ago, is that Julius Malema and the ANC Youth League are responsible for farm murders. The ruling government party of a country is the people are the people responsible for these crimes against humanity. And he called for an international investigation. Nothing. That's huge.
Yeah.
He
Where's the
just
world for
told
it?
the
Yeah.
world their
Yeah.
own government is doing this to them.
Yeah.
Think about how how can they just ignore it? And they know what's going on. They know.
Yeah. How can innocent? Let's just leave the men out of it. How can innocent women and children and their murders? I mean, people. We're not talking about just boom, boom, out go the lights. We're talking about like biology experiment level murders combined with rape, unbelievable torture. They, I mean, a 90-something-year-old woman gets raped by a gang of black guys
To death.
set on
To death.
to death. Yeah, most of us cannot. How can somebody be raped to death? That's because you don't think about it deeply enough. Women can be raped to death. Then these bastards set her body on fire and set her Bible on top of her. Now, I'm pretty sure there are some Satan worshiping scum out there somewhere. They're not members of this program. They're certainly not watching it. But they couldn't bear it for long. There are too many mentions of Jesus on this program for Satan worshipers to hang around very long. But where's the International Commission on Human Rights? Where are all these phony outfits? They're all a bunch of liars and phonies. Someone is telling them, as surely as I just saw a thing, this is a little far afield, but only momentarily and not really. It's all part of the big agenda. I just saw a man had posted a video about how as early as 1971, it's a long time ago. It's 49 years ago.
Yeah.
They were talking about how
You know,
these two agents combined into a vaccine produced a cancer-causing agent that was just killing the hell out of every lab animal they injected it into. But they went, no, the benefits of the vaccine far outweigh the fact that your chances of contracting cancer just went up exponentially. And if you did receive the vaccines that had these two components combined, you're going to get cancer. That's all there. But no, 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 no. No, no, the benefits outweigh the risks. This is how these lunatics think. And Julius Malema, as a matter of fact, I think we should give an example right at this point of Julius Malema and the things that he says.
So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness. Whiteness, go PE fedile gayon.
So when you see a member of a government body talking like this, what does this tell you about the rest of the government? And then, of course, we have the camouflage uniform wearing soldiers, black soldiers with their AKs. That's telling, isn't it? No M16s, no M4s. They're all AKs, all Russian-made stuff. When I was in South Africa, anytime we came across any weapons out in the bush, they were always Russian-made because the Russians were, anyway. That's a long time ago. That's part of that, what was it, a 19-year war or something? They're dancing around singing, kill the farmer with the machine gun. Those are the lyrics. What do you do about that? What kind of mentality is this, Brendi? How do you, why are these people being treated as though they are the underachievers in the elementary school or junior high school classroom? And we'll just coddle them and just, we'll put up with it because they can't help it. That seems to be an oblique racial, racist technique in itself. Oh, they're savages. Go, just let them do what they do. That seems to be the attitude of the so-called white ruling class.
right. So people don't like to use the word genocide, John, but I have studied the framework of analysis for atrocities, which is the UN definition of genocide as laid out by the world leaders, okay? There are 8 categories. White South Africans fit into all 8 categories of the framework of analysis. All 8. And almost every smaller subcategory. So I know this by heart at this point. Some of the factors in there are disputes over land, being kept from gaining employment, especially government jobs. And a lot of people don't know that whites are not even allowed to apply for government positions, such as you want a job at the post office. You get a pop-up on the screen that says, no, this job is for Blacks, colored, and Indians only. Literally. I mean, I have examples of this. But the most important thing is genocide is not based on a number. It's not based on a time frame. And it's not based on what color you are. And the way they get away with making it seem like nothing is they manipulate the numbers, right? The white minority make up such a small amount of the population in South Africa, right? So about 7%. So we'll say maybe 4.5 million people. That's being generous. It's probably much less. So take out the women and children, right? Take out the elderly. And then you have just the farming community, okay? The Black population is what, about 55 million plus? Okay, so the murder rate in South Africa is 36 per 100,000. That is as a whole. Yet only 8% of murders are ever solved. And this goes back to what you said about low-level workers that are not qualified to be put in positions. You see that with the police. They are more likely to be involved in committing crimes than solving them. But then you have just the farming, the white farmers. Take out all the other white murders. They have a murder rate of 156 per 100,000. That is horrifying. And they manipulate the numbers because they say, South Africa, it's not a problem because it's less than 1% of all murders. Yes, but what you're not telling people is that these people, there's only this many of them, and they have a murder rate of 156 per 100,000. That changes everything. People don't ever get that information.
Yeah. It's strange, and this is the other part, folks. This is a fact. This isn't this. You're not listening to people just popping off, saying things they know nothing about. This is a fact. The cops rent their guns out at night to criminals to go and commit these murders. The reason they do this is that before that, the police stations were being robbed. Gangs of black folks would raid the police departments initially while they were staffed with white police. They'd kill all of them and steal the guns. But, and there were some machine guns in there too, of course. Any police department has certainly some M4s, M16s. There's no telling what they have, HKs, from MP5s all the way up to the big ones. The, 308.
Even military bases.
Yeah, you're right. And so when you have people but Brandy, the problem that I see is that if this isn't stopped in this country, you're going to see the same thing. Police departments, actual police department buildings being attacked and the weapons stolen and the cops being robbed. We're going to see that here. This South Africa is the test bed, folks. It is the laboratory for what's happening here. I've said this for years. Well, take a look. And who's spearheading it? It's not the African National Congress. It's Black Lives Matter. I know we can add 2 + 2 and get 4 every time. What's it going to take to raise the awareness to a point where people will demand that this stop? I mean, what is this crisis of conscience? Well, we're being accused of oppressing black people, so do we continue to do things that make them think that we're mean and we're racist, or do we try and save a few lives here? Lives that are being lost to murder. I mean, to me, the choice is obvious. Let them say what they want. Save the lives. Sort out the other part later. But no, the politics are taking precedence over the actual blood being let.
Right. And I guess one reason I fight is because I just look around and I think this is what I'm leaving my children. I may be leaving them in a world where they don't have a future, not because they did anything wrong, but because of the color of their skin and because the world is so upside down. And I'm not shocked by the behavior and the destruction in America. I think what shocks me the most is the inaction, the cowardice of the government, and the fact that they have allowed this lawlessness and this complete abandonment of the police, betrayal of the police, just to continue. I never thought I would see the day in America. And I saw something the other day, John. I'm a native Texan. My family has been here for generation upon generation. My ancestors have fought in every war in every battle that has ever been fought in this state. formerly its own sovereign nation. And I saw a video of patriots, I'll get emotional, standing in front of the Alamo in rows to keep Black Lives Matter from destroying it.
Yep.
That is our history. And it's very important, especially to us.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking, but it made me proud at the same time.
Well, I think there's going to be a revival at some point. The same thing is happening now that happened back in those days. When enough blood is spilled, that switch will be flipped, and then the same thing that happened at the Alamo, followed by the Battle of San Jacinto, where the so-called Napoleon of the West, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, was caught in an opioid stupor, and the Texicans just captured him and kept him alive. They didn't want to. He was a murdering lunatic. He really did think he was the Napoleon of the West. And but it just took a lot of people getting killed before a mass consciousness formed, and that enemy was driven out and defeated. Now, of course, we're illegal immigration has slowed down a little bit, but there's that whole reconquista. You notice La Raza has been real quiet lately. La Raza, the race, for everyone in the race, everything. For those outside the race, nothing. But the white people are the racists. The white people are the ones in South Africa that actually educated the black children, kept the tribes apart, gave them their own homelands, reduced the violence, employed them, educated them, gave them medical treatment they did not have ever before the rise of South Africa as a nation. But they're the racists. It's so typical of the way evil functions. Look, all of these people out there on the left, they're pointing their fingers at those on the right. We understand that. I don't care what anybody says about the left-right paradigm. If there's some other paradigm they want to come up with other than the universal, navel-gazing society or theory, that's fine. But in the meantime, there is a left-right paradigm. It's what we have. And that's what we're bloody well going to use until somebody shows me there's another paradigm we should embrace, and they haven't done it yet. They accuse the ones on the right of the very things they're doing that the people on the right are not doing. But they think that if it can repeat it over and over and over again, the white South Africans, they're horrible racists. They've repeated that over and over again until the morons out there, which are in the majority, I might add, just nod like, yeah, they're definitely racist. In fact, I'm white too. Am I a racist? Yes. And you owe black people reparations in this country. What's wrong with you? It's just the devil. It's just devil stuff. I don't care what anybody says. This isn't man driven or woman driven. This is devil driven stuff. It's all counterfeit. Everything that's being put out there by the official sources in media, it's spin. It's not true. And even if there are some elements of truth in it, at best it'll be half truths, which are the worst. So now let me ask you this: What is Pottinger 2.0? Bell Pottinger 2.0. What is that?
Well, back some years ago, I just refer to this term 2.0, because it seems like it's happening all over again. But Bell Pottinger was a PR firm out of Britain, but in South Africa. And they were hired by the Guptas to stir up racial tensions, to make the white minority seem to be, of course, the evil overlords that, were too rich and had too much land and owned too many things, and to make the black majority think that they were much poorer than they were supposed to be, and to make themselves seem like outsiders and the victims. And this whole story came unraveled because they hired this PR firm to create fake profiles on social media, to a campaign of disinformation, to discredit any truths coming out about government and, um, just all of the corruption and things taking place in South Africa. And, they were exposed. It was a huge scandal, huge scandal. And today, because of the movement that we all have created, I see, I could only compare it to that, because the people out there that there's one person in particular, a guy on Twitter, I know for at least 2 years, he pretended to be a white farmer, and he claimed his name was Johann Stint. He was a white farmer. He slept on a farm last night and he was fine. So a campaign of disinformation. His name is Jack Stash on Twitter. He would go after anyone with speaking the truth, anyone, but mainly he likes going after women. So I found his real name with some help, and all of this little group that attack people in South Africa. It's people can attack you here and just call you a racist and whatever. You're just because you say that doesn't make it true. You're actually a jerk for saying that without evidence, and go to hell. But in South Africa, it's much different. If somebody complains to your employer that you're a racist, they can just make up something, and you don't have a job anymore, and it's hard enough to get a job. So they were getting people fired, tweeting out, attaching people's employers, attaching the South African police, and asking that people be charged with treason for ridiculous things, And the sad part is, a lot of people lost their jobs. I know people personally. They were losing their homes because of it, and it wasn't true. So anyway, it's the same campaign of disinformation and attacks on anyone speaking the truth. Um, you know, it goes so deep, though. I did a little digging with my limited resources, and it's pretty shocking. Some of the connections I made. There's a Gupta connection behind all of these anti-white hate groups that run rampant on social media and are allowed to say anything they want. Where if I actually did say abortion is murder on Twitter, I'm suspended for a lot. I'm kicked off of Twitter. They've had every account I put up. They try to deplatform me, of course. So I've had to seek alternative social media. I'm still on Twitter though, and Facebook and stuff. But I've had to really fight, because they have abilities to do things that not everyday people can do. I've seen them tweet out people's latitude and longitude, where they are at that moment. Who would be able to do that? That's what I asked myself, how would they be able to take down someone's Twitter account that they created before they ever tweeted, and know who created the account? Some crazy stuff going on is all I can say. And I know it probably sounds like a big conspiracy theory, but as someone who had all of my private information given over to actual members of the EFF and being attacked every single day of my life for 2 years in every way you can think of. I've been targeted by sex traffickers. I've had my bank accounts drained and overdrawn, my phone number cloned. You just would not believe the things that I have gone through. Who do you turn to? I've made 2 complaints with the FBI. They just think I'm a crazy lady on drugs, probably. But
Because it's government. That's
what do you do?
Inside the intelligence service, and they're working with their little buddy inside Google. That's an easy one. That's all there is to it. It's the same technique as we received an email recently from someone, and it had the same effect as, do you know fennel? I think it's FNNEL. It's a texting service.
Oh, yes.
And once the recipient sees it, that text is gone instantly.
Yeah.
Well, what happened here was that some very good intel that took a couple of hours to verify, but it turned out to be completely true. This email showed up. Apparently, enough time was allotted to read it, and then it disappeared. It wasn't in the trash. It wasn't in the spam. It was nowhere to be found. It was gone.
On.
But there were only a couple of points there, and it had to do with, and I'll be talking about this in the next few days for all the good it may do. I like to think that when I come across some real intel and toss it out to the public, like you're following the exact plan that took down South Africa right now. For 10 years, I was yelling about over the public airwaves about the resurgence of global communism. Well, there it is. And we are, in fact, in this country following the South African model of national destruction. We really are. But this particular piece of information indicated two major, shall we say, cracks in the wall into which various subspecies of rats can get through virtually undetected. And
Understood.
the place that was named does not appear readily. You really, really have to dig. And we have a really good analyst that's just joined the crew. And this person found it and identified whose it is, how big it is, of course, where it is, and what the implications are. But just to go back to what you were talking about, didn't mean to extrapolate like that. People who are on the inside do all sorts of things, all kinds of things all the time. But they've been able to look through the camera on your computer since the camera was put on your computer built in. But from the time that you
Right.
plugged in your little eyesight, they've been able to look through that camera for a long time. All this stuff about, do you really need to remove the battery from your phone after turning it off? Would that really keep you? Well, it used to work, but it doesn't work anymore because the camera's got an internal battery that nobody really pays any attention to. But the phone's on even when it's off. So
Yeah.
that's just how it is, you know.
And,
That's what
and
happened.
like I said, I know that it sounds crazy, but as you can probably imagine, I speak to many people in South Africa. Some that, I never speak about openly or anything, but there are a lot of former top military people still in South Africa from a time when they had a first class military, a world class military. These are the men, the most sought after men in the world. These were to fight, for countries during war. They wanted these men on their side, and there was a reason for that. And many of these men are my friends, and I know them. So, they know what's going on. They know how it's done, who's doing it. They have all of this knowledge because, they were once, I don't want to say doing the same things because they weren't, but had the capabilities that these people are using for nefarious purposes, not for military, but against. I'm a civilian of the United States of America. I'm not a government official. I'm not a military personnel. I'm a civilian. And as an American citizen, a civilian, I've been under attack, a cyber attack from a foreign government for 2 years. And I can't even get my own FBI to respond to me. Where do you go? That's
Well, when you've got a
crazy.
communist running it like James Comey was, James Comey was just a liar, in my opinion. He was a William and Mary graduate, it's my understanding. Voted communist in the past, was a communist. When he was asked about being a communist, he said, I used to be, but I don't know what I am now. And I say
He
again,
needs
John
to go to
Brennan,
jail.
CIA, he was a communist also. and
He needs
voted
to
for
go to
Gus
jail.
Paul in '76. And Barack Obama was, his father's not Barack Obama Sr. He looks nothing like him. He's a spitting image of Frank Marshall Davis, a notorious communist who was buddy
Right.
with Stanley Dunham and Stanley Ann Dunham. And so this is why I believe it was Thomas Jefferson, one of the founders, said the only way this republic is going to work is if we have a moral and intelligent, informed, and educated citizenry. But if you produce a crop of morons that are uneducated and unengaged, you're going to lose it. And we're on the verge of losing it because, in the words of the late George Carlin, we have a serious dope problem in this country. There are far too many dopes. And it's true.
Yes.
They put their little masks on because they're so bloody ignorant. They don't understand. A paper mask will not stop a virus. You see, you wear glasses and you put your little mask on, you notice how they're fogging up? Why is that? Let me think. Oh, I know. Air's getting out. Moist air is fogging your glasses up. So you bend the little tab down and now it's just fogging up the edges. People are so, it's not that they're not capable. To me, stupid is the result of decisions. There are many intelligent people who do stupid things. And if they do it enough, well, they become stupid people. The question is what to do about it. The dark side of this conversation is that I just wonder if there's the will to change any of this, to bring some real action about. And then I snap right back out of that darkness and I reconnect with the fact that it's always been 3, 4, 5. If you get 10% of people who are actually engaged, this is a gold mine of participation.
Yeah.
But usually about 3% is all you're going to get, and they will change everything. The question is, where are they? And when do they activate?
John, I ask myself the same questions all the time. It seems like the more education people get today, the more crazy as hell they become. I mean, it's insane. But how I've kind of worked it out in my mind, for Americans at least, is that we've been conditioned to safety and had, pretty much an easy life for so long. People have lost their natural instinct to detect fear. I mean, to detect danger or to be fearful, to see what's coming for them. That they've lost their natural instinct, their survival instinct, basically,
Oh, yes.
And they don't realize how good they have it. And that if these crazy, insane, communist, socialist take over this country, it's not going to be like this anymore. So this cushy life that they've had and all of this safety, we're going to turn into a shithole. Excuse me. The economy can't work, the way that they want to give everything for free and everything equal across. It's like diversity of thought is what we lack. And diversity of thought is the only real important diversity.
I would take
And
what you just said
shithole.
a step further. We have become a bunch of TV gazing, twisted, sexually insatiable, at least in theory, because people cannot carry out physically the things they have in their minds, porn addicts, sports addicts. And actually, it's interesting that at the beginning of the program, before you came on, I declared that people must stop making symbols out of people. The way people are thinking nowadays, they are this far away from actual superstition when it comes to the effect that these symbols have on them, from the Katy Perrys and types like her with their Illuminati eyeball and all this nonsense. They're so consumed with symbology, it's ridiculous, because for the evildoers, symbology is everything. Well, Christians have one symbol. It's a cross. That's it. And that cross says it all. But we don't have eyeballs floating in pyramids. We don't have goat man sitting there, with children at his feet or any of that stuff. But the evil ones, the ones who just say, hey, we're evil and we love Satan, that bunch, oh, they just display their symbols all over the place. Well, now what's happened is the citizenry has become prey to that
Obsessed.
mentality, and they are making people into symbols. That idiot Trayvon Martin became a symbol. George Floyd is now a symbol. It's just a bunch of nonsense. But unfortunately, it works. And the other part is this: it's Chinese slash now, before it was Soviet. The Chinese are much better at it because they produce all these products. I've got one right here. Now, this may not seem connected, but I'll run it past you. It's from Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton's outfit. U.S. Medical Research Agency fires dozens of scientists. This is from just June 16th, just this month.
Saw that.
Fires dozens of
I saw
scientists with
that.
financial ties to China. And get this, scientists of the National Institutes of Health, the U.S. government's handsomely funded medical research agency, have been fired over their secret financial ties to Communist China. It's not clear how long they went undetected or how much taxpayer-funded research they stole, but so far, 54 scientists have been booted for failing to disclose a troubling financial arrangement with a foreign government. In the overwhelming majority of cases, 93%, the cash came from China. Well, where does anybody think the cash is coming from to fund that government in South Africa? It's coming from China. There's
Right. And
a Chinese intelligence ship is still parked at the port of Durban. I'll stop. You go ahead.
right. And what's interesting is you look at I think the whites have, just for being white, they have it's like 160 something laws against them, keeping them from getting employment and I mean, all kind of things for the color of their skin. The Chinese are the only people, they do not have to abide by BBBEE laws. So if they want to hire only Chinese, they hire only Chinese. They have their own police stations. They have their own housing set up for only Chinese. People think I'm crazy when I say this, but China is not our friend. They are our enemy. Don't mistake a smiling face. And what we need to do is start manufacturing our own drugs. We need to put a full trade embargo on China and tank their economy in one day. People think that's insane, but they're just afraid of change. If we there's going to come a day, mark my words, where people are going to wish that we had done this. People in government are going to wish that they had cut China completely out of the picture.
President Trump's
But
going to do exactly that. I think he's going to decouple China from being able to do business in the dollar. While all these economists out there, all these experts are talking about the death of the dollar and all that, I don't think so. I think the dollar is about to get a lot stronger because I think China's going to
I
be
hope
taken out.
so.
And when China's taken out, that means that the demand for cash, because they're going to come one way or another. Yes, I know they create it with the stroke of a pen or ones and zeros or something, but it has to be backed with cash. We don't have a digital system unless it's one operating internally. And that's just as easy to cut off somebody's wallet, their little digital wallet, as it is to go into their house and take their cigar box full of cash away. Once China gets cut off, I think that's why we've got a carrier group in the South China Sea right now. One twitch, and the carrier group that's just what they see. What they don't see is the last thing they want to see hovering over them up in space. Because the United States Space Force has been in existence for a long time. It wasn't created
Right.
under the Trump administration. He's just the one who announced we got a Space Force. Now I'm starting to see ads for people, United States Space Force, like a recruitment ad. Well, they didn't just decide to turn this program on. Hey, we've got a Space Force now. I guess we better get some people to staff it. No. So we very may be on a war footing with China, but nobody knows about it. They keep everybody distracted with COVID-19 and problems with black people. The same problems in the United States plaguing black people are the very problems that are plaguing the black people in Africa. They're really good at killing each other, really, really good at killing
Right.
each other. And they're really not good at designing things like wheels. And it's just the way it is. I mean, but for the grace of God, goes John Wells, the black guy with an IQ of about 40. Well, it didn't work out that way. But there are a lot of white people that are a lot smarter than John Wells is. I can't just bust into their club and bust into their business and just, hey, give me a job. I think this is really cool. Well, no, you have to have
No, give
training.
me half of your business.
Yeah, give me half of your business because I'm a white person too, and this is a white business, so you need to give me half of it. Or a
I don't
white
have
person
a
walking into a
business
black
like
business and
Google,
asking,
so I want half of it.
yeah.
You know,
Right.
it's crazy.
So
But
if people
I
want to play
say
the
all the
race
time
card,
that the victims have, I mean, the perpetrators have become masters at playing the victim.
sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but the numbers don't lie. So the Department of Justice statistics about crime don't lie. But we have allowed it, and we're the only ones who can stop it. Sorry.
All dogs are welcome. You may hear Charlie sing out here in a minute. Just depends. He speaks when he wants to. Um, yeah, the thing is, they don't want to talk about black on black crime over in this country. They don't want to talk about the black on black crime over in South Africa. They don't want to talk about
Right.
the fact that Saint Mandela killed more black people on orders of magnitude than white people did, even in military operations to defend the northern
A
border.
Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Oh yeah. Well, so was
Who
Obama.
also sang, right? Who also sang to kill all whites.
That doesn't get out into the press too often, does it? Now,
A
folks,
terrorist.
you need to hear about this, about Bell Pottinger. The name was familiar to me, but I didn't know how. These are the guys that made the fake Al Qaeda videos. They're bankrupt now, it appears. But here we go. The firm has been described as having the most controversial client list in the PR industry. It's been criticized numerous times for conflict of interest edits that the company has made on Wikipedia pages that involve or are about their clients. According to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, the company was hired by the Pentagon to work in Iraq, make fake terror and news-style videos targeting Al Qaeda for the reported sum of $540 million. Now, this is not a new story. We've mentioned this before. They got a $500 and something million contract for making these fake videos. Well, they did, including the Jihadi John ones as well. I mean, I think, but nobody could believe it. Nobody could. Whatever happened to Jihadi John? Oh, he got killed. We think Jihadi John got killed. Yeah, sure he did. Well, he's wearing an American-made shoulder holster. That's obvious.
Right.
I know this stuff.
And
I scroll the web looking for it, and he's going to cut this guy's throat, and at the end of it, he tousles his hair, and they break for lunch, and you can see the guys, their ball caps with their cameras and all that, and there's a stage down there where they're shooting this video, and the American people just
right.
go, terrorism, man, it's terrorism.
Okay. And I know the Guptas were paying Bill Pottinger $130,000 a month for this. So imagine, I mean, that's just one client, one client, and they have tons of clients like this. So I mean, imagine how much money they were making on the backs, literally on the backs of the Afrikaner, the Boer people there.
Well, I'm pretty sure most people don't know this one. During 2016 and 17, a sustained dirty campaign by Bell Pottinger came to light, in which it played on racial animosity in South Africa, including the creation of fake news in order to benefit its client, Oak Bay Investments, which is controlled by the controversial and influential Gupta family in South Africa and had strong ties to then President Zuma's government. In 2017, the resulting scandal saw the firm disgraced and expelled from its professional body. Chief executive and largest shareholder James Henderson departed. Lead partner Victoria Goghagen was fired, and Chime, its second largest shareholder, wrote off its investment and departed. There was an exodus of major clients and other senior staff, with the result that many onlookers thought the UK firm was highly likely to close, while operations in the Middle East and Far East could be sold to new owners. Almost at the end, on September 12, 2017, it was announced that Bell Pottinger had entered administration, with some staff immediately being made redundant. Meaning,
Right. So
they went
they're
into
still
bankruptcy and
operating
got a bunch of
today
people doing
under a
double
different
duty.
name.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
I
review
don't know the
bylaws.
name right offhand.
Let's
Okay.
see. Yeah, well, that's the long and the short of it. They work for governments. The question is,
Right.
where did the $540 million come from?
It's probably American taxpayer money. I'm just kidding, but we send a ton of money over there.
Or Chinese? Or both?
The Chinese. How many times have the Chinese bailed out ESCOM? Please, somebody tell me, because the country's on the verge of the entire power grid collapsing, and China has, well, not just China. They've been given the money to upgrade the infrastructure and do the maintenance time and time and time again. It's like you had one job, just keep the power on, and you couldn't even do that. And they won't accept the help from white engineers who actually have a plan. I mean, it would take a long time, many years to fix the problem with ESCOM and the power stations. But there are some white engineers that have a plan, and the government will not allow it. They will not allow them to help. Therefore, it's just a matter of time before there's a complete failure of the whole power grid. And who knows how long it will take to come back up. And the implications of that are horrifying. Not only will there be no power, there will be no water, because there will be no fuel to power the pumps, to pump the water, and there will be mass slaughter.
If they can lock us down the way they did over this stupid COVID-19 thing and all these
Right, that's
COVIDians.
martial law, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's house arrest for sure, but the other part is this. There were a couple of reports, they didn't get much play, of blackouts in certain towns here and there in the country. Not many, but a few. And the folks, they have these things called load shedding. This is where they
Yes.
just, because incompetent people who can't come up with a wheel by 1652 are running a sophisticated electric grid, and they can't run it. They don't know what they're doing. Part of the problem is that the non-wheel designers raid these power stations and destroy them and take the metal, all the metal they can carry, and go and sell it for scrap, disabling the electrical supply for large communities around South Africa. But what I'm getting at is all they have to do is come up with an excuse. Our grid is seriously under threat, so we're going to do some load shedding over here. And you may even hear that term used, load shedding. Somebody made a
Right.
Somebody made a video about they went to level 6 or something like this, and there's a knock on the door. There's already the electric power is off. The guy comes to the door with a candle, and he opens it, and there's a black guy standing there. He blows the candle out and leaves.
Wow.
That's level
How nice.
6. That's level 6, right? No, you can't even
Yeah,
have
I
a
mean,
candle.
that's right. It can't get much worse. I mean, it's insane what they are allowed to get away with. It is unbelievable. Only South Africa. I mean, if people really knew the truth of everything happening there, I mean, the fact that the ANC ruling party between January 2016 and January 2018, there were 90 murders within the ANC by other ANC members, hiring hitmen, assassinations. I mean, they do not care what they have to do to remove the obstacle that is getting in the way of their position and money. If they think that that is at stake, you're going to end up dead. I have a friend who's business partner. He had his entire life destroyed. He was a military grade weapons dealer in South Africa by the government, by military generals, prosecutors. They stole shipping containers full of military grade vehicles, weapons, and most importantly, a Dillon Mini Gatling gun.
What?
Well, the gun's no longer operational. I was worried about the government and them having this, but they're so stupid. They
You hear
lost
me?
a component a little bit.
No. Which gun is it they stole?
A Dillon Mini Gatling gun.
Oh, the
So,
Mini
the
Me.
machine gun you stand in front of, it
Yeah,
has to warm up. Right.
yeah.
So he purchased this because it's been on the Sandip's wish list for more than 20 years. The gun could not be bought even if they had the money. The government can't buy it directly. They have to buy it through a third party. And I have the documents, so I've read all of this stuff on black and white, okay? So this man never charged for the crime. They destroyed his life. Stole his money, stole everything. What their plan is Arms Corps was planning to replicate the gun. When they took the gun, it was taken apart, and the military that took it, they lost some of the components. So today it's non-operational, and they can't replicate it. So that's good news. But even the prosecutor that knew he was innocent, she didn't release. This all happened 2013, 2014, right? Destroyed his life, took everything he owned. His partner was murdered in broad daylight by men wearing body armor and wearing Johannesburg police officer uniforms in broad daylight. And the prosecutor did not release the letter exonerating this man until 2019, saying that he did nothing wrong.
Well, that's where
When
we're headed.
they knew.
That's
Yeah.
precisely where we're headed here. They
It's
routinely
exactly
destroy
where we're
people's
headed.
lives here.
For no reason, because you want, it was all over tenders and things like that, which, is a huge problem there. And, they had a tender that another company wanted that had influence over the government. So let's just take out this man's company and his life and murder his partner. And it's just complete lawless. It's a gangster state, just like the man that wrote the book says. It's ran by thugs and gangsters.
Yeah. Well, that's where it is. I remember years ago. This goes all the way back to the '80s. The ANC has been around for a long time, and I got one of the first Paul Reed Smiths. So I think it was actually made in '85, and I got it in '86. And then later, so I didn't even know about Paul Reed Smith guitars then because they were fresh on the market. And then I saw this picture in I don't know, some music magazine somewhere. There's Carlos Santana sitting there grinning with his Paul Reed Smith guitar, and he's wearing an ANC T-shirt. I called the company and I said, "Do you know who the ANC is? Do you know what that is?" "Well, no." "What do you think? It's some little social club or something? Love, peace, and joy, and all that." "That's a murdering communist outfit in South Africa." I would strongly advise you to get Carlos to either change his T-shirt or take him out. If he insists on wearing it, get him off of your ads, because a few of us know exactly who the ANC are, and many of us feel so passionately anti-ANC that we would never have one of your guitars in our collections or in our hands, even to play after seeing this ad. And they got rid of it.
Yeah.
They didn't know.
It's nobody knows. Nobody really knows. You know, people don't know that Nelson Mandela was on our terror watch list for many, many years, you know, before they took him off of it. That doesn't make him less of a terrorist. He killed tons of innocent people, and he didn't discriminate on what color they were, whether they were women or children. You know, having his MK uh, terrorist soldiers bombing bus stations and places where there were innocent civilians. I mean, and the whole plan was to steal a country, to cause mass chaos, to force the government to act, to force the international community to demonize the National Party. But they were destroying the country. I mean, they caused a civil war on purpose. I mean, they were trying to. That's what they were trying to do. But people don't know that. They should watch the documentary Tainted Heroes, because for anyone who doesn't understand how this all happened and how these people that built this beautiful, amazing country that is being leveled now by the ANC, if you don't fully understand it, to watch the documentary Tainted Heroes will give you a greater understanding and some knowledge of what really happened. You know, there's a quote at the end of that video, and it says that something about you don't know who the real heroes are if they're all dead, right? So there's only one side left to tell the story, and I mean that's what we see today. The world got the ANC's poor, pitiful me story, but that wasn't actually the truth. No one talks about the 10-state solution and how a ton of land was given over, not because they had to, but because people could not cohabitate with each other. And South Africa wasn't the only place that people couldn't move freely. Okay, it's a country. When you have a country, it has borders, and you have every right to say who can and cannot come in, how long they can stay, and to know what the hell they're doing while they're there. And people could only move freely in their own homeland. You can't just go into someone else's and move freely. But it doesn't fit the anti-white narrative. So it's not worthy of news or worthy of speaking about.
You are distributing. You're getting food to people who can't afford it. Is that correct? That's my understanding.
Um, I've been trying, and I've had a lot of success in this. And it started because a lady reached out to me, and she was just, I don't want to say her name, but she's just a business owner. She didn't have an organization or anything. And she asked for my help. She told me, I can't just sit and watch. My people are starving. They're starving. So I shared her funding page. I had her checked out first. I know a lot of people in South Africa. So I had them check her out. They said she's absolutely legitimate. She is a good lady. She owns this business. Anyway, I shared her page. Within one day, she reached her funding goal. So I also help out the VBS, is a group. It's kind of a civil defense group. I'm sure you know about the civil defense groups and how there are many of these. And, these are the guys that go out in the neighborhoods and, track down the murderers that kill farmers and, from these groups. And the VBS is one of these groups, and it's a lot of former military men from, when it was a first class military, but they also do things like go out to and deliver food to people, even though the government has, they've now said no one can deliver food parcels except the government. If you have food parcels, you have to deliver them to a government place to let the government distribute them. There's only one problem with that. Blacks are suffering too, don't get me wrong, but whites are being turned away from receiving even food parcels. They're being told these are not for you. And I get emails, from families, from mothers, from fathers who don't know how they're going to feed their children, desperate mothers who don't know how they're going to get baby formula. And even though the ANC has put these things into place, these men are still going out and making sure that these families have basic necessities and food. And for many of these families, if there were not, and there's many groups doing this, by the way, it's not just the BBS, but a lot of these families, if it weren't for this, they wouldn't eat. They would not have food. And on my website, I have a page dedicated to this, and pictures up of the food that we've been able to provide and buy for people. And there are children that they go and provide meals for every day. So yeah, it was a big concern of mine. Having food is something very basic that we need to survive. And when I saw that there are children that are not even eating every day, it just killed me, because it's something we take for granted. So yes, I have been trying to raise money for this because the lockdown is still ongoing there. People can't go to work. And it's not for lack of wanting to. They're still under lockdown. This lockdown is being used as an excuse to decimate people's businesses, and the little that they did have is being taken from them. And it breaks my heart to see people being brought down so low. Proud people that don't want to ask for anything, that don't want to accept a handout. I call it a helping hand. To be treated in this way, it just kills me. But yes, we've had some success, but food runs out, money runs out, so as long as this lockdown's in place, there's a great need for food, and people to help out with this. And if people can help, it's greatly appreciated. I often update the page with photos of food and of the children with their faces blacked out, and what I can share. But it's been amazing, because so many people have helped and just really gone out of their way, that it just made me really proud to be an American.
Going to take official action to really solve this. It's going to take the president to do something about this.
Yeah.
In the meantime, all of these efforts need to go on and help as we can, and we do, and try and get people out, like with this Ark project. And as far as this guy Balson is concerned, he's just an agitator. I don't know where he's getting his money. I don't know if he's insane or if he's a paid agitator, but this fellow is. He should be completely rejected. He's got his little collection of frantic, vicious little know-nothings that want to support him, but
I'm being attacked by them.
yeah, well, he's just a fool, and he's going to wind up having everything that he's put out there redirected right at him at this very moment. There are people out there who seem to believe that their sole purpose in life is to undo the legitimate efforts of other people, thereby casting themselves in the light of the great champion, the great defenders of truth, the ones who want to tell you how things really are. But in the end, they're frauds, and in some cases, criminals as well. And so I was delighted to tell this person on his own program, which by the grace of the Lord, we had to record because he couldn't get it together and record it on his end for his live stream. But we did, and in that way we preserved the integrity of the recording, because this person is also notorious for rearranging parts and making people and putting things together in a way that suggests the exact opposite of what they actually stated. Well, that wasn't possible, and I told him I don't debate fools or drunks. And I see a little of each in you. And I got to tell you, I enjoyed saying that because that's exactly what I see.
It was
I see a
epic.
vicious, just a vicious little man who is trying to cast himself as relevant in some way, and he's not. He's just a disruptor. And I say again, I suspect he's taking money from somebody to do this. So if the name Scott
It
Balson
was
comes up anywhere, just go the other way because it's rubbish. Okay?
it was an epic interview. I do not ever watch any video that he puts out. My best friend was messaging me in all caps with a lot of exclamation points, telling me, "Go now! You have to go now!" But you know what, John? I think that where the problem lies is when people start putting themselves above other people, right? When you start measuring your worth in likes and subscribers and attention, then you begin to think that, and not all people are like this, but I've seen many lose their way because the attention makes people, gives them a false sense of self-importance. And
Sure.
they begin to make themselves believe that they are much more important than other people. And I have some advice for those people. I get up every single morning. I never knew anyone would follow me. I never knew that people on the other side of the world would know my name, that preachers would speak my name in church to give people hope. I never knew this. And I'm so humbled by this. It just blows me away. I get up every morning and I make a concerted effort to speak to the people, to never, think that I am too important or have too much going on, to take a minute and take the time to hear what the people have to say, because I'm just like they are. I have more in common with them than I don't. And if people would just humble themselves and realize that all of these worldly things, one day there's going to come a day that you have to stand and you have to answer for what you did and what you didn't do during your life. And I'm pretty sure that the kind of shoes that you wore, how many likes or subscribers that you had, and what kind of car you drive are not going to count in that answer. It's going to be the measure of a man and the measure of a woman in what you did when presented with things like the atrocities taking place in South Africa or whatever it may be. What did you do? Did you say, I'm too busy for that? Or did you heed the warning and carry the burden that God showed it to you and he tried to steer you in that direction because he needed your help, but you thought you were too important? Just humble yourself, and stop. Be willing to help wherever you're needed. Don't try to be the hero, because that having a pure heart and just doing good actually makes you a hero. You don't have to be the winner. There is no winner. We're all working toward the same goal. So I think being able to be humble every day and being willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what that is, that makes you a hero.
So how can we help? How can we contribute? Where do we go? What do we do if we want to help you help other people?
I had I started my website because social media is so biased against conservatives and, you know, all of these issues that we've been speaking on today. So they take it down. They won't let us show the images of the crime scene photos. They won't let us show the hate that is shared openly on social media platforms. They suspend our accounts for hate speech if we put the images up. They suspend it for inciting violence if we show the crime scene photos. But these things are very important to see because these people, they're not a number. They are human lives. They have stories, they have families. They were someone's daughter, someone's mother, someone's son, someone's dad, someone's grandfather. And every one of their lives had value. And the way that they are murdered is worse than anything that I've ever seen in any horror movie. It's something I can't even imagine.
Absolutely. This is true. What she's saying is completely true. And in fact, what she's saying is horrible as it
Babies,
is. Doesn't even come close. What about babies?
babies having blowtorches taken to their feet and their hands, babies gang raped, you know, and they weren't dead, so they wrapped them in newspaper and set them on fire. And then, if that's not bad enough, women brutally dehumanized, raped in front of their husbands, forced to watch, gutted, mutilated, and then hacked to pieces in front of their husbands. This is meant to dehumanize people. It's not for sexual gratification, and that's a war crime by definition. But these images, they need to be seen by people in order for people to understand how horrible it is. They need to look upon the faces of the people. They need to read their stories, and they need to see them as human. So I have up all of these images and the hate, because it's not enough that these things are done to them, but then there's open taunting, threatening, and bragging, taking pride. These people are held as heroes. And you can find all of that on my website. It's ANC Sanctioned Genocide. I also keep up with farm murder news, corruption in South Africa. There's, news from all around the world, on important issues. There's a blog, and I have many people contribute to this blog. There's also a board testimony page where you can go and hear testimony from the farmers themselves. So you hear it from their mouths. What is happening? What is going on there? So there's a lot there. I'm not a professional, so it's kind of trial by fire. So I'm doing my best. Please don't judge. If there's anybody out there that wishes to help or give me advice on how to run my website, I will take it. So again, it's ANC Sanctioned Genocide. You can donate if you want to help there. You can check out the page that I made about whites being denied food, and see some of the things we've been able to accomplish. But please go and at least look at it. Give the respect to human lives, to just see them, see their faces, and hear their stories. Because if you do, you will be outraged at what has been being ignored and hidden from regular citizens for 26 years.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you haven't seen this website yet, you don't really know what a hate crime is. And I had to go through a VPN to be able to reach it. Site cannot be reached. So if you don't have a
Really?
VPN, folks, get a VPN.
Wow.
That could just be my computer, but yeah, I have to go through
No.
VPN.
So several people have told me that they can't access the site.
Unless you use a VPN, there are some sites that you simply cannot reach, and they count on that. If you keep messing with it and change browsers and so forth, that you might be able to get to the site. But it's planned. They want you to not go to the site. It's ANC sanctioned genocide.com, and it's a very, very nice looking site, and there are lots of stories there. There is you scroll down to the bottom of the page, Dr. Stanton, Genocide Watch. These are hate crimes. Warning to the world. Folks, I implore you, South Africa may not make any difference to you at all. It's not part of your world. It's not part of your reality. But if we're going to make a symbol out of something, if we want to make a symbol out of hate crime, what's happening to the South Africans by the Black ANC is the epitome of hate crime. There aren't gangs of white men going around killing blacks. There aren't gangs of white cops going around murdering black citizens in this country. Black people in this country are killing each other in huge bleeding batches, just like always, just like over in Africa. Look, when people talk about cultural differences between people, what is culture anyway? It's how your group, race, nationality evolved to whatever point you find them at. Go back in history and see what point the culture was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago. Culture is what the nation, whichever one we're talking about, does. Culture is the symbol of the consciousness of the people of that particular nation. In the case of the sub-Saharan African indigenous people, those tribes have always been warlike.
Okay.
Now the Namas up in Namibia, they're not warlike. The ones that were discovered, I can't call their name at this moment, but the Bushmen that were found in South Africa and Dutchland there in 1652, they weren't warlike. They were just walking.
Khoisan.
Yeah, that's correct. You're exactly right. But these other
They're
ones,
also discriminated against. They suffer almost as much as the whites. And they are the indigenous people of South Africa. And they will tell you very quickly that the Boer are not the invaders, that the other people are. And the Khoisan people were there first, if you want to get technical.
we're going to have to do this again. In fact, I would like to just plan now, because it's just getting worse over there. And look, they are denying any kind of aid on the basis of skin color against this COVID-19 nonsense. Oh, how did it spread all over the world? I mean, do we really not understand what's going on here? Do we really not understand? Oh, let's see. Let's wipe out the white South Africans. Oh, and these white people in the United States are so horribly racist. We've done more for black people in this country than all the rest of the countries of the world combined, with the possible exception of South Africa, who I say again, cared for them, set up their homelands, gave them medical, educated them, brought them into, well, as close as they could into the 20th century, and they got nothing for it except murder.
The greatest nation, Africa.
That's what they do. They do the same thing in Africa. It's time somebody said this. You know, Brandy, it's time somebody said they do the same thing in Chicago, for example, on the south side there, that they do in Africa. The black men run around impregnating all these women, getting them all pregnant, and then they have nothing to do with the children. But they sit around like big studs. They've got all these children, all these women, all their baby mamas out there, but they don't do a damn thing for them. And when the kids grow up, who are their mentors? Who are their role mottos?
Rappers, thugs,
and gangsters and all of this, and
culture.
shoot them in the head and bust a cap in your ass and all that. You call that a culture? That's not a culture. That's degeneracy. Wake up. These people do not need any more slack. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm talking about the ones who conduct themselves in a criminal, murderous fashion. I'm not talking about black people who work, who are educated, who take care of their families. The fact of the matter is American blacks did do all of those things until the communists began jacking them up and telling them how bad they've got it and how horrible. These are white people telling black people that other white people are really, really bad people, and you really should take a look at this, and you shouldn't put up with this anymore, and blah, 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 blah. And it's just one big, stupid, negative PR campaign. Now, probably the words that are coming out of my mouth are like, man, that's racist. It's not racist at all. What I'm
No,
telling you is as
I
long as
have
you
a
speak,
I have a I have a video clip, John, where Malcolm X says the exact same thing that you are just saying. He is talking about white liberals and how they are really the most racist people, that they think it is their job to come and tell black people what they need to be doing and what is best for them. And it's an old video, but he tells them, reject this, so he said the exact same thing that you were saying. But people just they don't see it, and it's just like they don't know that the NRA in the 50s provided weapons and training for Black Americans to defend themselves against the KKK. Fact check me. That's a
I,
fact.
I, I don't think the NRA keeps black people from joining, do they? Don't think so.
No, but people believe this crap.
Sure they
That
do.
is a fact. Check it for people listening who don't know. That is a 100% fact. But and we're accused of being the KKK.
Of course.
I mean, by the
What they
party
do.
that was the KKK. It's
Look, I
insane.
keep
I would love
Randy,
to come back on. It's been a pleasure. I agree with everything you say, and people just need to wake up and pay attention. And the reason South Africa is important, people, is because if you ignore what is happening there, what we're doing is we're putting a big green light. We're saying, okay, it worked there, and it is coming for us. It may come in a bit different way, but it's coming. It's already here. Please don't turn a blind eye.
it's your girl. We'll be in touch, all right? You stay safe. Safe as possible and
Thank you
strong
so
as
much.
always, all right? Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, John.
It's not about race, folks. It's about ideology. Some groups are more easily led than others. Stop let us all stop making symbols out of people. God bless and good night.